So if you recall, we have talked about, rather we have completed the basic part of the JSP. And now we are going to start with JSP actions. So my request is, you already have that README JSP. And after include directive, I'm talking about JSP actions. So let us continue with them. So read the basic syntax and the meaning. We'll start discussing. Okay. So when you talk about JSP actions, see, you have seen scripting elements, you have seen JSP directives. Now we are talking about JSP actions. So those are also nothing but the commands which are meant for web container. But then what is the difference between a directive and an action? Directives are processed, applied, everything done at the translation time. Here, they are interpreted, translated, processed at the translation time, but actual effect, actually the actions are executed at the runtime. So actions are dynamic actions, runtime actions. Directives are the instructions to be followed at the translation time. So now let us go deeper. If you the JSP overview, there are some JSP standard actions, then there are JSTL actions, custom actions, etc. So what I mean by standard actions? Standard actions means the specification of these standard actions. You're going to see JSP colon use bean, use bean action, then the set property, get property, etc. So those specifications are part of JSP API jar. So whether it is Tomcat or anything, they will be present, and implementation classes left to vendor in Jasper jar. A simple question. If we want to use any of the JSP standard actions, which will start in a minute, do you need to add any additional jars, or is the specification and implementation already present? Is any extra jar required or not required? Do you have to import anything additionally? Answer is no. When I take you after a while to JSTL, yes, then you'll require. So we'll do it one at a time. So now, what is the syntax? Syntax of a JSP standard action. So this is the tag name. This is the action name. So it has prefix colon suffix. So all JSP standard actions start with a prefix of JSP. Colon is the separator followed by the action name. So that is your syntax, JSP colon action name. And you might have some attributes for that particular action. You might have the child tag, a tag within a tag, nested tag, body of the tag. And this is your closing tag. But in case you don't have any child tag or a nested tag, you can directly say like your BR tag, self-closing tags and all, or your, table tag has TR, TD and all inside, but BR tag and all, or anchor tag, href and all, that doesn't have, that has a body. BR is a good example. So you can simply say JSP colon action name, list of attributes, attribute name equal to attribute value, and closing it. So this is your simple syntax of JSP action. So instead of directly jumping into beans, which we will of course do, that is the main objective of this session. Let me, before I take you there, you can look for Control F, look for forward. I'll show you something which you'll understand so easily, because we have done the request dispatcher and all in detail with what? With your servlet. So if you want to forward the client from one dynamic web page to another web page, what are the steps we had to do in servlet? What is the first step? Create request dispatcher object and then call rd.forward. Everyone knows that, right? So now I'm saying, but that is so much of Java code. So if you want to do the same thing in the JSP, we had to write a scriptlet. Those who have solved yesterday's assignment with a server pull, they know what I'm talking about. So I'm saying Am I showing you any new concept? Absolutely not. You already know request dispatcher, but I'm showing you some standard actions called as JSP colon forward and JSP colon include, which will internally call the Java code. And in simple English, you don't have to write any Java code. So now read this request dispatcher's forward scenario without using any Java code. Watch, I mean, take a look at it. It's a extremely easy thing to understand. So the question is, do you want to write all this Java code or do you want to replace it by JSP action, which is easier? Right? Without writing Java code is always easier. Shortcut is always easier. So look at the syntax. JSP colon forward page. Page is nothing but the next page path, that is a URI, the next page location. And okay, by the way, you can add the nested tags here. For example, there is a tag called as, there's an action called as JSP colon param, where you can pass the parameters, request parameters. Currently, we are not doing that. So as an example, 1.jsp. In 1.jsp, suppose you say JSP colon forward, page is, let's say 2.jsp. Earlier, I showed you servlet to servlet forwarding. Now I'm showing you JSP to JSP. So what will be the equivalent Java code you can think of? When you write only this much, the request dispatcher object will be created by the container and it will call forward. Likewise, you have another servlet server pull scenario, which is what? Include. So read that as well. So as you can see, simply replace JSP colon forward by JSP colon include. You got that? So just before the break, I showed you include directive. So when I talk about JSP colon include, is it an include directive or is it an include action? What are we talking about? We are talking about an include action. So when you use JSP include directive, contents will be included at the translation time. When you use JSP colon include, the contents will be included when? Translation, compilation, or runtime. Action, when I say include action, when the contents will be included in the translation phase, compilation phase, or in the runtime phase. Of course, in the runtime phase. Okay, so that's the difference between the two. So let's take a simple example and try it out. Open. Continue with the same application. When I take you to JSP JavaBeans, we are going to develop. I'm not saying we are developing entire CMS because it is time consuming and you don't have that much of a JSP time. Okay. So, but part of it we will definitely develop. Anyway, so coming back to the point, add the link. First, we are talking about some actions, forward action. Later, you can definitely try include action in the lab homework types. So I've got test 2, test 3. So let me say test 4. And testing forward action. Okay, so we are using the JSP action, forward action. And here itself, add some request parameters. It's a query string I'm adding. Why I'm doing that? Because I don't want to waste time in, writing a form and all that. So suppose I have got a, e-shop, a e-commerce kind of a thing where I'm having the products. So let's say something, product name equal to, let's say, bread, ampersand. This is just a shortcut, nothing else. Product price equal to, let's say, 50. So I'll send you this link in case you want this. I'm just adding some parameters, request parameters there. So how many request parameters are we injecting? Are we supplying product name and the product price? You got that? So let's write. So which will be the next page I have to write is test4.jsp. Okay. And now let's write this web application new JSP The whole idea is just to make you comfortable here. So here, now, what I'm saying is, I'll give you the, I'm just thinking about it. I'll say, I want to print the product name, and I want you to, of course, not me. And I want to print the product price. So, and I'm giving you a clue. I don't want you to write any Java code. Give it to me using EL syntax. Anyone wants to tell me? Just tell me what EL syntax I'll use here, because that will tell me your understanding. Is the question clear? The form is not form, that whatever your query string is submitted to this, and I just want to display. Yeah, so the full thing. Yes, $param will give me both. I want product name, product price. Exactly. So param.name. So it is a request parameter. So if you say param dot whatever is the product name, I mean whatever is the request parameter. So I hope it is all easy. Don't have any white spaces, and then you can have the price also. Everyone clear so far? So this is done. Now I'm saying what I want you to do is, I'll give you in writing. I'm already giving you a clue. Create a request. Yesterday we said user details. Today I'm saying product details. Create a request scoped attribute to store product details. Okay, since we have done it multiple times, I don't want to waste time because we are getting late in starting JavaBeans, which is our main thing. So set attribute, I can say product details. And here, I am not going to create a product page and all that we will anyway do with the database and over time and all. So let me just take this. Now I want to concatenate product name and price. But since it is a pure old, I mean, plain old Java code, I cannot use the EL syntax. So I'll have to do it in a, elaborate manner. Request.get parameter. I'm just showing you parallelly because some people still get confused about request parameters and request scope attribute. Parameter means string, comma, string, read only, inherently thread safe. Attribute means string, comma, object. So all of that. So here the name is going to be product name. And I'll just add something like just a separator because I've not created the product Pojo. And product price, ideally I should convert it double dot pass double, but since I'm just concatenating, I'm keeping it the same. So all this price. Oh. Fine. Okay. So there's nothing happening, nothing great happening here. Okay, give you the code, one-liner. So what is it we have got? We got request parameters displayed from this. So you can add a message here. So product details from which page? From test 4. Okay, and here I have created a request for attribute, etc. Now I'll give you a requirement. This is your JSP style command. Forward the client to the next page, which is what? test5.jsp in the same request. That is a real thing. I mean, this is the real, question. So give me the next line. Can you do it using a scriptlet? 100% yes. You can't do it with a EL syntax, you can't do it with a JSP expression, but scriptlet is fine. But I don't want to use the scriptlet. I want you to use, yes, I got an answer from Ankit already. Of course, a JSP action. Okay, so which is the JSP action? JSP colon control space. It will show you so many. So the one which we are using is JSP colon forward. It will auto-complete. Are we going to add any body? Not in examples, not in this example. So you can close the tag. And what will be the value of the page? The value of the page is going to be the next page URI, which is test5.jsp. Got it so far? Oh, one more thing. Create the, I was going to forget it, set attribute also. Create a page scope attribute also. Then it gives you a chance to ask you the question. I forgot about it. Create one page scope attribute, create one request scope attribute. And when you say JSP colon forward, which are the two lines of the Java code container, I mean equivalently we'll call request dispatcher RD is equal to request.get request dispatcher test5.jsp and then rd.forward. Understood it completely? Everyone? Okay. So obvious question. Will these product details, will they be visible? I mean, will they be sent to the client browser or skipped? Sent or skipped? Will you see this product details from test4.jsp quickly? Sent you are saying. Come on, guys. We have said it literally 100 times. When you say forward, container, first thing is clears, discards the response buffer. Haven't you seen that? Come on. So this was a trick question. This is not going to appear. Understanding this or not? And if you trouble the container by actually saying whatever out.flush, you will get an illegal state. You might get some exception, but you will definitely not see the forwarding. Remembering or not remembering, why you said send is beyond me. We have said this so many times. Okay, so now, which is the next page? Okay, it is a division of responsibility, separation of concerns. So this page collects all the information and the last page in the chain can generate the dynamic response. So we are creating a two-page chain. So let us create the next page as whatever, test5.jsp. Okay. If there is one red cross on test 3, ignore that because it is an included page which ID doesn't understand. So right click new test 5 and just copy these lines. Okay, copy these lines in test 5 and say that it is from test5.jsp. So now answer. Are you going to get this content sent in the response buffer? Of course, yes. Next question. What will be the value here, which you will see in the response buffer? I'm so sorry, on the browser. Blank or non-blank? Will you see this blank or non-blank? Non-blank, bread or whatever. Why? You're right, but why? Why you actually get a value in this? Exactly, same request. So we are doing the request chaining. So the moment you say request parameters are not yet gone, not yet discarded. The corresponding response is not sent. So of course you will see this. Now let us print the request scope attribute. If you are present in yesterday's lab session, I think you should understand it automatically. So the name of the map is, see, param is the name of the map to pick up the request parameters and request scope is the name of the map to pick up the request scope attributes. And don't waste your time in this thing, spelling mistakes. Okay, so, and here I want to also print the page scope attribute. No white spaces. And you're not allowed to run it. You're just supposed to tell me. So as you had already answered, this will be accessible. You will see the product name, product price. Answer the next question. Blank or non-blank? Accessible or not accessible, in short? Will the request scope attribute be visible, accessible? 100%. non-blank. And how about this? The last one, of course, inaccessible. Are you getting it? Blank, because our page scope is over and we are not including this page at translation time. We're just forwarding the client. So as you have answered correctly, now test it out. I don't have the, so I'll just say right click, run as server, and just test this. So testing forward action. So many things. Once again, the same thing, page navigation, which we started way back in last week. So you can see the URL doesn't change because only one request has been sent from the client. You can trace it from the network tab, which has product name and product price. Of course, the details which you are sent from the first page in the chain, all intermediate pages in the chain, response buffer is cleared. But from the next page, yes, you can see the product price. This we have found out, or rather this we have extracted using the request parameter. This is what I had created as a request scope attribute, just to tell you that JSP:/forward is nothing but your request dispatcher's forward scenario. And the moment you say you are stepping out of the current page, of course, page scope attribute is gone. Are we 100% clear? Same concept, looking at it from different ways, in different ways. Okay, so this was your introduction to JSP action. Now let us start the real topic of today, which is JSP using JavaBeans. So before I say anything, let me just pick up that case study. The same content management system, and we are going to pick up. I'm just looking for it where it is. Diagrams, A3 maybe. Studies. Okay, so I'm just putting it here so that it is easy. Okay, I'll open it in a Paint. So everyone has to understand first, what is it we are attempting? So which part we had done in servlets, the customer or admin, which flow we had completed in servlets? You might have completed both, which is excellent, very good, keep it up. But I had finished on the customer. The admin I had only explained. So this time with JSP, we are going to complete the admin flow. Is the requirement clear? Is the objective clear? So you might see something like, this thing, servlet and all. So we'll discuss it whole. But before I can come to the admin flow, where we are going to add a new tutorial and the dynamic drop-down list and everything, I have to first do what? Authentication is common. Are you understanding it? So the authentication part, I could have done it from the login servlet and I could have just mixed JSP. But today I want to give you the practice of something called a JSP and a JavaBeans. And later when we bring in together the MVC architecture or MVC pattern and its implementation, you will see model is nothing but implemented by JavaBeans and POJOs. The view layer will be implemented by JSP and servlets will control the JavaBeans and overall the navigation. But today is not an MVC day. Today is the day for JSP and JavaBeans. So my point was, or the way I train is, first I take a lot of time in showing servlets. Then we devote some time of theory session, some time of lab time also. I told you I'm going to take a lab session to not theoretical, but yes, to complete the part if I don't complete it now. And that will give you today JSP and JavaBeans, and somewhere means after Hibernate, we'll connect it together and we'll have MVC. And that will lead us to Spring MVC and Spring Framework and whatever. Okay, that's the plan. So here, let's start solving. So this is your login form. Now we are going to replace the servlets by what? Servlets by, yes, please. We are going to replace the servlet by, not the whole case study, the admin section part of it, by JSP. So now identify what is it we used to do in a servlet? The business logic, request processing, response generation, managing the DAO. So if I, as it is, do a drop-in replacement of a servlet and a JSP, again, you have a mix-up. So the whole idea, I hope you remember why JSP, which I said yesterday, was separation. Separation between what and what? Why JSPs we are learning? Business logic and a presentation logic. Absolutely. So the presentation logic, response generation logic, some part of request processing, we'll do it in a JSP. But where are we going to write the business logic, DAO management in a new component, separate component, not a high-tech this, something called as a JavaBean. Okay. So listen to what I'm saying. Am I showing you something like a totally different technology or okay, totally different technique? Absolutely not. We're just going to take that servlet code, and that servlet code we are going to split it open or separate it in functional manner, presentation logic in a JSP and a business logic in a JavaBean. You understood what I'm saying? So it is nothing but the same old ladder, but done with a separation. So servlet is going to be replaced by combination of which two components? Whatever standalone servlet was doing will be done by the combination of JSP and JavaBean. All clear? So that you understand what to expect exactly. So naturally, when I say servlet replaced by JSP and JavaBean, can you tell me what was the layer below the servlet? A DAO layer. So DAO, DB utils, POJOs and database. Change or no change? In today's case study, zero change. Now, are you understanding the, what do you say, point behind the layers and the standard design patterns? Design patterns are, layers are reusable. They are the reusability. So I don't even have to think about DAO and below layers. All I'll have to focus upon is the servlet, what is it called? Separated into JSP and JavaBean. So let us do some preparation groundwork, and then I'll tell you why JavaBean, what is JavaBean, and the syntax and everything. Okay, so open your IDE. You could have solved that admin portion also, but like I said, I have not. So the last version which I'll tell you, yeah, day 5 lab CMS, I think, just a second. I'm just checking whether we had modified that. So somewhere we had modified that, this thing, visit counter and all that. I'm just checking. Yes, this is the latest version. I was just checking whether I'm doing it with the tutorial name. So now I'll tell you, or rather you can tell me. I think everyone has access either to your own implementation, or if your implementation is incomplete because of any reason, everyone has access to day 5 lab CMS. So anyone wants to tell me, if we are going to create a new project, day 8.2 or day 8 CMS or something you can call, and which layers are we going to copy as it is? Your choices are DAO, pages, POJOs, utils. Which ones, please? Which ones are going to be the same? POJOs and utils. Here, a new dynamic web project, day 8 CMS. Yeah, I got a glitch. So I hope now I'm audible again. Anyway, 3.1. See next, generate web.xml, finish. And once the project gets created, open src main Java and control V, paste it. So we already have all those DAOs, user DAO, topic DAO, tutorial DAO. You already have those POJOs and you have DB utils. But this version does not have the servlet config or context parameters and all. It is talking to a one simple database. So if you are using my code, every time you use you have to change the username and a password. This doesn't have any XML configuration, but I have separated open connection and close connection properly. Everyone reached here? Starting point is clear? Run the copies? Great. Now, which was the layer earlier who was managing the DAO, such as instantiating the DAO, calling the CRUD methods, cleaning up of the DAO layer, was a servlet. So that portion of a servlet, the DAO management, who is going to take it up? JSP or a JavaBean? Think logically. It is going to be taken by the JavaBean. So now get introduced to what is JavaBean, why JavaBean, and all of that. Okay, so everything is written in that README JSP. So here, see the examples could. So here we are finally entering most important part of the entire JSP, which is a essential understanding for your MVC. Without JSP JavaBean, I mean, I can't explain MVC at all. So read this. I said open README JSP and look at JSP using JavaBean, and please read the reasons of why JavaBean. Read it. Okay, so parallelly, I'll start explaining. First reason is separation. So from now onwards, the business logic, including the managing the DAO layer and calling, will be added in the JavaBean. And the page navigation logic, request processing, response generation will be still added in the JSP, because I have not yet brought back our servlets. This is not an MVC yet. And very importantly, you will see JavaBean is nothing but an ordinary Java class. You will know about it in a couple of minutes. So JavaBeans will have properties. What is property? Non-static, non-transient data member, instance variable, typically private. And those properties will represent the client state or some application information and all that. And we will be writing the business logic methods for the same, for any, for controlling the DAO layer. Without example, little hard. Another reason is when you say JavaBean, as I said, it is an ordinary Java class, but who is going to create the instance of this JavaBean? Programmer or web container? Answer is web container. And let me explain it so that you understand it immediately. JavaBean is nothing but a server-side attribute, server-side object created by who? Created by the web container and added in one of these scopes. So which are the 4 scopes? You have choices. Which are the 4 possible scopes? You can put a JavaBean is equal to attribute in PRSA, page or request or session or application. So if this JavaBean is going to hold, for example, keep in one of the windows, Paint or something, this case study open. So first I'm going to solve the validation. Without that, we can't continue to admin part. So this JavaBean, which is a part of a servlet, is going to store the user details. So the moment I say, I want to store user specific details, answer the next question. Which do you think will be a proper scope to put this attribute in? Attribute, JavaBean is nothing but an attribute. Will it be better to keep it under the page scope, request scope, session scope, or application scope? If it is going to represent a particular client detail, which is the best scope? Of course, session. But if you come across a requirement, like I gave you example, some e-commerce, you are having a promotion offer. Any information which is common to all clients, customer, which is the scope you will go for? Application, likewise. So this gives you the reusability. The same JavaBean instance can be shared across, because it is an attribute, across multiple pages, requests, clients, etc. And there is a third interesting reason. So let me just ask you a question. I don't know whether, I don't think rather everyone would have finish this. So let me just ask you a question in general. Actually, this is a wrong question. Okay, let me ask you a simpler question. Suppose to explain what I'm saying here. Suppose you are accepting a product price in a form from a client. So request parameters are going to have what? String comma string. That is string name, string value. So till now, who had to do this parsing from string to primitive types? Sitting in a servlet or whatever little bit of JSP you've seen, who had to do this parsing? Programmer. But when you use JavaBean, one of the advantages, who is going to do the automatic translation means parsing from string-based request parameters to primitive types, programmer or a container. Answer is a container. Okay, so that is why you are learning JavaBean. Major reason being the first one, separation. So now you can just look at like how the first day of J2E, which was last Monday, I guess. Yeah, last Monday, right? JDBC, when we started JDBC, I showed you about DAO layer POJOs. Today I'm introducing JavaBean. Are JavaBean in your contents? Unfortunately not. But like I told you, the contradiction is they have mentioned MVC, and unless until you understand JavaBean, how can you understand a model and the part? So we are doing it. So coming back to the point, when I explained your DAO layer and POJOs, I hope now everyone is clear. In the same manner, you will get clear here. So when you write a JavaBean, what is it? It is going to be it's an ordinary Java class. It is nothing but an attribute which is automatically going to be created by the web container. But is web container like a magician to automatically create this attribute? Unfortunately not. So you will learn a action. Which JSP action we covered earlier? JSP:forward. So now you'll be using or you'll be learning something like JSP:useBean. So when you use in a JSP:useBean, no Java code, your container will create this attribute and put it in a required scope. All of that will be coming. So web container will automatically create the instance of your JavaBean and put it in the scope which you order. So all that will be later. So now the rules. If your JSP is going to manage the JavaBean, I mean through the container, and currently no servlets, today there are no servlets, you have to supply the default constructor. So I have a small question here. Okay, actually before asking the questions, I should send you the diagrams. JSP, JavaBean related. Actually, I was hoping I could start it yesterday, but I could not. So just a second. Wait, let me see. Are there the layers? The whole thing is, you need to have the information about the layers. Yes, we have this layer diagram. I'll send you this. So that you can read and parallelly you can process. JSP, JavaBean related diagrams, JSP and JavaBean related whole stuff. Rest of the day, all this and JSTL, of course. So when you open this, the first thing you should open is the layers involved. So please understand these layers really well, because based on this, a few days down the line, maybe 5 days. Okay, not 5 days. Sorry, 5 days is too much. 3 days maybe after Hibernate, we are going to start Spring. So whenever I take you to Spring MVC, you will revisit similar layers. So all that is basically finally tending towards Spring. Anyway, I hope you got the diagram. So when you open typical layers in JSP, JavaBean, DAO, POJO, utils, and the database. So forget about whatever I've mentioned here. First, look at the ladder. Always look at it in the bottoms up manner. So which is the lowermost layer? Database tier, correct? Enterprise information system. What is the object representation of database data? A POJO. So if you talk about focus on small things, so you'll start feeling better. I mean, clearer. What we are solving first is the user login. Without that, I can't continue to admin. So here, do we have the users table already existing? You just have to tell me yes or no. Of course, yes. Do we have a user POJO? Yes. Have we written the iUserDAO as an UserDAO interface and implementation class? Yes, again. So this part you know very well. This is what today eighth day in JDBC. So everyone knows the interface and implementation class, connection, prepared statement, callable statements, etc. Load driver is no longer required. This is the old slide. For the latest JDBC drivers, that is kept. Getting the connection, preparing the statements, cleaning up, and the CRUD API. So do we already have copied that user DAO layer? Yes. So which was the layer earlier who was managing the DAO? Servlet. But servlets were overburdened. So we are separating the business logic and the DAO management part of the servlet, and we are putting it in the JavaBean. So simple question, simple answer. Who is going to manage hereafter? Even later when I take you to MVC, if the DAO layer, servlet, JSP or JavaBean? Answer please. Who is going to manage? Who is going to create the instance and clean up and CRUD? Always the JavaBean. Okay, so JavaBean will have so many things which I'll explain one by one, and it will of course have the business logic method. So here is the summary which you have read from that readme. So JavaBean will have data members, which are going to be typically the whatever client sends you email password, or when we come to that adding a new tutorial, maybe the tutorial details and everything. Plus the DAO instance variable, whatever it requires for working, will have that. We will add getters and setters as per standard naming convention, which is get camel case version of property name. And mostly why we are here to add the business logic method. So let me ask you a simple question. Between JavaBean and the DAO layer, who is going to call whose method for which purpose? Is DAO going to call a JavaBean Beans method, or is Bean going to call its method? Bean to DAO or DAO to Bean? I mean, method calling. Of course, JavaBean is going to call the DAO layer method, because when I say business logic method, do you want to mix up the data access logic, or you still want to maintain it separately? Of course, I want to maintain it separately. Got it so far? So that way. So this is your the data access logic we are not even touching. Instead of a servlet, we will write a JavaBean. And who is going to manage the JavaBean? Is it going to be a DAO layer or the layer above? Of course, layer above. Today, it is a JSP. When I take you to a full-fledged MVC implementation, answer will be servlet. So today, I'm not bringing in servlet. Focus on JSP and JavaBean. So this is the ladder I'm talking about. So, okay, before I say any client sends a request and all, before I stress the request flow, I have some statements to make. So how is JSP going to manage the JavaBean? When I say manage, what I mean is how it is going to create the instance, how it is going to call the business logic methods, how it is going to get the data, everything, all of that. Are we going to write a scriptlet any longer, or are we going to use some JSP actions and the EL syntax? Answer is zero Java code. No Java code, no scriptlets. Instead, you will be learning some JSP standard actions. When we use JSP colon use bean, you will see that web container will create the bean instance and put it in the desired scope. When you say JSP colon set property, guess smartly. What will get called from a Java bean? Setter of a property or a getter of a property? Simple question. Easy question. Of course, a property setter. Why and all? In a minute. And when you say JSP colon get property, what will get called? Constructor, getter, setter, or business logic? Answer is getter of a property. So, if I want to store the validated user details, we will just add a property in a Java bean. You know, now I don't have to say station.setAttribute user details. You will see shortly, this whole Java bean itself will be added as an attribute in that inner map of HTTP session. You remember that is a outermost map. Then there is a HTTP session object and there is an attribute map. So bean is nothing but an attribute. So we will redraw the diagram, not as detailed, but something in a lab session as a revision. So coming back to the point, Java bean itself will be added as what? Session scoped attribute. Why I'm saying session? Because I'm talking about remembering it from login to logout and all that. But the main reason we are writing a Java bean is for separating the business logic. So how your JSP is going to call a business logic method such as authenticate user, or later, what is that? Add. You remember that adding a tutorial that under admin session. So all these things, how it is going to do? Are we going to invest any Java code? I already said no to scriptlet. So now you'll see again, your EL syntax is so powerful that it can call getters, those property getters. I showed you page context.user.name or whatever, plus it can call the business logic methods. So if you say, okay, this is too complex and all, it is not. When you hear it on the first time, when you hear it on the first day, of course, everything is complex. So why I explained you all this is just to get you started with the layers. So topmost layer, JSP, managing the Java bean. Calling the constructors, getters, setters, business logic of the Java bean. Java bean in its business logic method, calling the DAO layer methods. And DAO to database traffic, you already know. I'll not waste your time in that. Okay. So these are the layers in the top-down manner. JSP to database. Understood it? 2-3% at least? 5% at least? The whole aim is to increase it to 100%, but over time, not immediately. So now, while during the development, do we develop it in a top-down manner or do we develop it in a bottom-up manner? Yes, please. Typically. There's nothing like a hard and fast rule, but typically we do it in a bottom-up manner. And as you all know, DAO to database is already done. That is why, I continue with the same case study. Anytime you say you are bored, you can always choose. There are so many case studies floating around. But at least, let me not change it too frequent. Otherwise, your whole attention goes into the business logic. So coming back to the point, which is the next class we are going to write? Are we going to write a JSP or are we going to write a Java bean? Of course, we are going to write a Java bean. But if I directly start writing, you will not even know why I'm doing it. So it is very essential, very much required for everyone to understand the request flow. Okay, so start understanding. Imagine that the login form was submitted. I'm starting with login and then we will continue with the admin section. Admin role. So client submits a login form. So when the client submits a login form, how many request parameters will be sent from client to server? Simple question, simple answer. In that login form, how many request parameters? 2, email and a password. So this form, will it be submitted to JSP or will it be submitted to Java bean? Yes, already there is an answer, but you tell me. The form submission, form action will be what? Of course, a JSP. Guys, Java bean is like a helper component. Java bean is not a dynamic web page. It is not a dynamic web component. So the form will be submitted to, let's say, validate.jsp or authenticate.jsp or login. I mean something. You got that? Now, listen to the statements carefully. Now, do you want to write a authentication business logic in JSP or do you want to write it in the JavaBeans? We want to write it in the JavaBeans. But typically, the business logic methods are going to be non-static method, instance method. So before JSP can call a business logic method, what is it JSP will have to create? Before JSP can call JavaBeans instance method, what is it JSP will have to create? Of course, JSP will have to create the JavaBeans instance. Wait a second. I'll just open it in Paint. You already have your this. Otherwise, every time I do this, switch it. So here is the pointer. So here, JSP has to create a bean instance. So are we doing it with scriptlet or with JSP action? Answer is JSP action. And which JSP action you are going to learn for creating the bean instance? Use bean, set property, get property, or EL syntax. Use bean. Okay. So here the control will come to the JavaBeans constructor and JavaBeans default constructor will get called. So now your real understand. I mean, let me see how much you have understood. Can you think and answer? What is it you would like to do in the JavaBeans constructor? You already know the answer. Think a little bit. I said, what is it you would like to do in the JavaBeans default constructor? Let me see. Absolutely right. Create the DAO instance. Well said. Because who is managing whom? Or rather, who is dependent upon whom? Bean is dependent upon the DAO here. So, of course, Bean has to create the DAO instance in its constructor. Okay. I'm just developing a story. I'm just developing the structure of a JavaBeans for your understanding. But before the constructor, this is object-oriented programming. So you think about the state. So anyone wants to tell me? Listen to the question. These email and password are going to be sent to the JSP, no doubt, as a form submission in the body of the request. But is there any point in keeping this email password here when the business logic in JavaBeans? In short, who will have to send these email and password to whom? JSP will have to set the email and password to JavaBeans. Are you understanding the communication between the layers? Guys, it is all about the flow. And trust me, why I spent almost a day on this? Because very similar layers you see in Spring MVC Hibernate. That is, it is all the preparation of the final thing. Okay, so coming back. So JSP is going to pass this email and password, that's client state information, and pass it to JavaBeans. So now reverse question, which data members you will have to add in that? Okay, let's call it a name, user bean. I've got a user now. We'll be writing a user bean. So which data members you will have to add in this email and password? And who is going to pass the values? JSP, scriptlet or JSP action, and which action? Set property. Are you, I mean, is it shaping up? Is the JavaBeans shaping up in front of you? So JavaBeans will have a private string email and a password. We will write a constructor. Constructor will not initialize anything because client has not yet come in. We will simply create the DAO instance. And then we will, develop it over time. And of course, we'll have setters and getters, which will be called by the JSP. So let us get started. So I think I've written some of the things here. Yeah. So we have seen what is JavaBeans, public package class, nothing but an attribute created by the container. And why JavaBeans? I said separation, reusability, and the automatic parsing, automatic translation. So which is the case study? I'm not solving the full case study, I'm telling you. So the part of it is admin section. So we have already solved. I'm so sorry. We already copied. You already have table and all. Others we have copied. So now focus on JavaBeans steps. So here in a minute, please be ready. We are going to create a user bean. As already said, I can't directly go to that adding a tutorial. So I'll have to do the user authentication. If user authenticates, then we will check the role. If the user is in the role of a customer, we will redirect him to that topics page, which I'm not developing here, which is already developed under servlet. And in case of admin, we will redirect him to that whatever show form or something. That's the whole thing. So now, as a Java bean, as a user bean, we'll create in a minute a separate package. Let's say beans and create a user bean. Two properties are already explained, email and a password. That goes without saying. Otherwise, how will I store the user details? I mean, user inputs. But can you tell me, why are we going to add a user DAO also? Or okay, let me rephrase the question. Can you tell me where we are going to create the DAO instance? Your choices are Java Bean constructor, getter, setter, or a business logic method. In a Java, no, bean is fine. In Java bean, where we are discussing bean in the constructor. Okay. So naturally, but okay. Where are you going to call the business logic method from? Sorry. Where are you going to call the DAO CRUD method from? From the business logic method. So if you want to access a DAO here, we will better create a reference and keep it here. And upon successful whatever validation, authentication, where will be those details? DAO will return it to the bean, and we will store it in one of the properties. Okay, so that is what will be the data members. We will add an argumentless default constructor, which will instantiate the DAO. We'll generate all setters and getters, and our first attempt will be writing a business logic method for user authentication. So what I'll do is, wait a second, I'll share this sequence also. I'll keep modifying it if required, but at least, let me send you this. So you can keep it open and you can refer to it step by step. So download the today's sequence, which I don't know how much we will this, but okay, let's see. I mean, whatever. And look for the reference project and the steps, and let's start doing it step by step with you all. So partly here, partly in the lab. Whatever remains will be done in the lab. So now, so everyone has got D8 CMS done. What is the next step? Don't directly write JSP. Let's write a Java bean. So src main Java, right click new. There's no option like a Java bean. Java bean is an ordinary class. So come to the class. Src main new and choose a class. It's not a DAO. It is not a listener. It is not a servlet. So please create a new package, beans. And since it is going to be all storing user related stuff, let's call it as a user bean. No extents, no implements. Tell me when you reach here. Got it? Okay. So now let's add the properties. Everything starts with the state and then the data and then the action on the data, right? So properties is nothing but non-static. And I hope you remember that transient keyword. Transient is something which is not persistent. So non-transient state basically. Instance variables. Or you can say data members, whatever. So start. So first category is clients conversational. All these are heavy words, but good to use in interviews, provided you understand client's conversational state, which is nothing but ask yourself, what is it your client will give you? So of course it is an email and password. Okay. So this is our starting point. If you don't want to write the comments, I'll send you those comments. Now, who is going to what is JavaBean going to manage? That is whose method JavaBean is going to call the DAO layer. So the dependency of JavaBean. JavaBean is going to be dependent upon user DAO. You remember there is a topic DAO, tutorial DAO. So currently I'm just talking about user DAO. So declare it as a data member. You can always use the interface reference pointing to implementation class or directly use the implementation class, does not matter. So private user DAO IMPL and give something. Recall how we were doing it in servlet. In servlet, we were declaring those data members, and in init, we were creating the instance. That whole business is delegated to the JavaBean. So you have done this, and to store, what do you say, validated user details. All I'm thinking is only in authentication. Step by step, I'll take you ahead. To store the validated user details, let's declare a property, user Pojo. Yeah, so user, pick it up from the Pojos, and you can say user details, something, some variable name. So these two are going to be set coming from the client. This we are using as the dependency. So Bean will be able to call the DAO layer methods. And upon successful validation, authentication, we will store the validated user details which are lifted from the database in a data member. Realized? Understood why I created these properties? All you need is a practice. And like I said, you will get a lot of practice in the today's lab. So this is it. Now let us add a default constructor which will be called by web container. Web container is the one who is going to actually manage, but which trigger? What will trigger this? There you will be learning shortly a bean action, a new JSP action called a JSP colon use bean. So we'll see all that in the JSP layer. So here, just generate the constructor. And here, just add a tracer, that is in user bean constructor. So you will know the whole flow in with couple of SOPs. And now you know the beans dependency is DAO. So here, which is the dependent object and which is the dependency between bean and a DAO? Can you tell me that this is the dependent object and this is its dependency? Dependent NT, which one? Who is dependent upon whom? Which is the dependent object, guys? Bean is dependent on the user. So Himanshu, what will you call it as a dependent object? Bean or a DAO? Label it. A bean. What is the dependency object? Which is the dependency? DAO layer. Remember these. Push these statements to the back of your mind. When I start with the first day of Spring Framework, we'll be talking the whole day on dependence, dependencies, and dependency injection. Okay, so all of that is going to come together later nicely. So here, create the dependency. That is, in simple English, create the DAO instance, which was happening via servlet. So that portion we have picked it up and put it in a bean. I'm telling you, nothing new. Of course, JSP actions will be new, but this logic you have already written in a servlet last week. So all I have to create is user DAO. Don't forget to instantiate. Somebody had forgotten it and he was getting a null pointer. So of course, you'll have to create the user DAO instance. Reached here with understanding, not just blindly typing. Typing is not important to me at all. Understanding is super important. Okay. So if you can manage both, then only follow type along with. Otherwise, you can just sit back and understand and later try it out. So obvious question. Why compiler error? Unhandled checked exception. So now tell me, are you going to, okay, simple question, centralize error handling or layer by layer error handling? Centralized. So here DAO has delegated the exception handling to the bean. Will bean handle it here or will it delegate it to JSP? Try catch or throws? Simple. Delegation, right? And do you remember we just now means in the morning, we covered centralized error handling in JSP. You remember that is error page, etc. So we will add the error page and everything will be done in a centralized manner. So in simple English, don't use any, what do you say, try catch. You can add a throws here, throws SQL exception. So JSP using some standard action via a web container will call the constructor. And when the bean has to create its own dependency, which is the DAO instance. And you can just, it's been long time. So you can say control click. So here, when you are calling that open connection for the first time, of course, the connection will be established and the prepare statement is already understood till the beans constructor. Understood the first part of the bean. 1/4 is done. Okay, I would say more than 1/3 is done. This thing. So here state is also done and the initializer of the state, the user DAO instance is also created. So can anyone tell me an easy question? When the constructor has been called, what are the values currently of email, password, and user details? Null or not null? They are null. Which is the only variable we have initialized user DAO. Okay. So now, as like your Pojo and JavaBeans structure is similar. Then what is the difference? Pojo will never have the business logic method and Pojo will never be managed by JSP or container. Pojo simply represents the database data. Here you have business logic. So add getters and setters. So this part is same as your Pojo. So you can generate all getters and setters. Over time, you'll realize which ones you need. You don't need all of them, unlike the Pojo. Here, typically we don't even add toString. You'll see why. You're not going to use the toString for debugging. So now just take a step back and check what all we have added. A constructor, which will be called by the JSP using some standard action, JSP:useBean. The getters, which will be the standard action we will use from JSP to call the getter, JSP:get property or JSP:set property, GP or SP. Of course, get property. How will you pass this email and password? You got setters, set password, set email will be called from the JSP. So now, can you tell me which is the only part which is remaining? Why did we choose the beans? What is the part which is remaining? Okay, yeah, business logic. I was looking for a word, business logic. So always add a comment. So add business logic method. Is it for a new user registration or is it for a user validation? Sign in or sign up, in short. Of course, user login. So add business logic to or rather for user login, or you can say sign in purpose, validation, anything. Okay. So now what are the rules for writing a business logic method? Good news is there are no rules. Okay, except one. Only rule is the business logic method has to be public, because who is going to call this method? Tell me. Let's see whether you answer it correctly. Yes, you are right. I was worried whether you'll say web container because generally the answer is web container. Of course, JSP is going to call the business logic. So it has to be public enough. Otherwise, how can you access? Now, the return time. Let me take a pause here. I have arranged the JavaBean training in such a way that it will help you a lot when I finally take you to Spring MVC. Okay, so all these are like intermediate steps. Or I'll rephrase my statement. Whatever techniques you will see me here, you will see us using here, are all taken from Spring MVC framework. So when we leave JSP JavaBeans scenario and we enter Spring MVC in couple of days, you won't find it too hard. Okay, so coming back to the point, let me open this. So here, JSP is going to call the business logic method, but JavaBean doesn't have a data access logic. So JavaBean is going to call that DAO layer method, authenticate user or whatever we have written. It is going to fire the select query. It's a select star email password types. The result will come to the DAO, and that DAO will return. Earlier it was returning it to the servlet. So now it will return it to the JavaBean. And then here we will check that business logic, null or not null, and proceed accordingly. Understood the data flow which I said? The page flow, not page flow, it is data flow. Okay. So now, as a JavaBean developer in a business logic, what I want is, let me open the page flow diagram. So let me, we have got a, this is case study, we got a 3 outcomes. Outcomes means 3 various results. So let me ask you, in case of invalid login, where would you like to take the user back? In case the login itself fails, where do you want to take the user? To the login page. Okay, perfect. In case customer has logged in successfully, where would you like to take the client to? To the topics page. Are we going to develop this topics page as a servlet or a JSP? Of course, all JSP. So I mean, I'm not going to develop it, like you may take it up. And the main thing is, in case admin, user has logged in as an administrator, which is the page we are going to take the client to the show form page. Understood what I said? Are the 3 outcomes clear? So these outcomes are what? Page names. So typically, JavaBean will return as a result of business logic, the outcome, the navigational outcome. Navigational outcome is too hard English. Just a string which indicates where to take the client first. Client next. So that was the explanation. And then I can say the user validation, user login, anything. The method name, let me see. Otherwise, you might misinterpret. Okay, so the method name of the DAO layer was validate user. Should I have the same method name here or any method name? I mean, same or different? Answer is anything, because it doesn't matter really. So purposefully, I'm taking authenticate user. And my always standard question are, what should be the arguments here for authenticate user method? What should be the arguments in this? I got just one answer. So almost 100% time I get the answer, email and password. Wrong. So let's see why wrong. So let me explain, or let me ask you. Is your JSP directly going to call a business logic method, or is it going to first instantiate a bean? Tell me, direct or instantiation? Of course, instantiation. Why? Because is it a static method or a non-static method? Non-static method. So instantiation 100% has to be done. So what will be the JSP action we will use for that is use bean. But now, before calling this business logic method, are you going to pass these client sent email passwords to JavaBean, or are you going to directly call the business logic method? You're going to pass these email and password. How? Using which which JSP action? Set property or get property? Set property. So the point I'm trying to make is, by the time your JSP ends up calling the JavaBean action, which two things would be already done? The constructor, I mean bean instance would be already done, and which two setters the container would have called already? Set email and set password. Got me? So now tell me again, is there any need of passing email and password again here? Absolutely not. Are you realizing? But since it is your first bean, you may not trust and you should not. So here you can add a SOP in authenticate user and just confirm what was that? Email, and add some space here and password. So if we write the JSP properly, JSP colon use bean, JSP colon set property, 100% these won't be null. And so the basically client's state, client's information is client's information means client's identity, those credentials is already available here. Why? Because we will be calling it that way in a couple of minutes. Now, next one. So if I have got these email and password, who has to call whose method for which purpose? Who is the invoker? JavaBean has to invoke. Mute all, please. Invoke DAO's method for user validation. So is the user DAO instance null or already created? Already created. That is why the flow. So you simply call. This should look very similar. Same thing we were doing in the do post method of a servlet. I'm splitting it in a JavaBean. No other changes. So user DAO dot validate user, and here you pass email and a password. And what are you going to assign? What is it your validate user method is going to return? The user Pojo. And that is the reason we have got already this property user details. So simply assign user details. Oh. Okay. Of course, there's an unhandled exception and all. We'll fix it. Do it systematically with understanding. So we are writing a first business logic method of your JavaBean. We'll confirm from the console whether email and password has already reached here, null or not null types. And if it is like proper, 100% it will work. We will do it in proper manner. And bean is calling the downlayer method. Reached here. Can I continue? Okay. Same question, same answer. Unhandled. Why there's a compiler error? Unhandled check exception. So try catch or throws. We want to delegate. That is our standard thinking. But here, listen to the question. I get this answer throws because I just now said I want centralized error handling and all that. But guys, what is this method supposed to return? 3 different outcomes. So here, okay, so let's do the okay, let's do it in a simpler manner. I'll take that. I was going to show you with throws, but that I will add. I was going to show you with try catch, but I scratched the idea. Maybe it will confuse you. So let me go in the manner you will understand. SQL exception. So we have satisfied the whatever compiler. Now, can anyone tell me how to check valid or invalid login? If you have gone through our servlet, you should answer this immediately. Same code I was writing, but in a servlet couple of days earlier. Exactly. Null checking, what else? So you remember the DAO layer returns you either null or not null. So here, start. If user details is not equal to null. Okay. And I'm going to say return something. Else, what does the else imply? Successful login or invalid login? You know, invalid login. And anyone wants to tell me, in that case, Where should I send the user? What should be the return type? What should I return in this else case? In case of invalid login, login.jsp. So here, I always get an answer as, from the freshers, login.jsp. Wait for a minute. But if you just hard code the extension, then I can't change after a while the JSP based view layer to something. There are other view layers, free marker, velocity template, time leaf, etc. So as a standard programming practice, don't add the extension, don't hard code the extension. Whatever we want to do, adding a JSP specific names and all, we will do it in the top layer. So typically label it. This is your dynamic navigational outcome. Means what? Where to take the client next? And I'll repeat why I removed that .jsp. Of course, we are going to add that .jsp, but in the JSP layer. So that the same bean, I can reuse it with a different view layer technologies. That's the whole idea. Now, come here and tell me, what does it imply? Valid login or invalid? Everyone knows valid login. So do I have to check anything further or no checks further? What is the next check? Role check is the next one. So now I have to check, fine, authentication is successful. Now authorization. The client is what he claims to be, but which pages can he access or what permissions he or she has? So role-based authorization. So valid login. So now continue to role-based authorization. We're going to use all this with Spring Security ultimately. But today we don't have a Spring Security. So we are doing it all on our own. So here, how do I check it? You know, it's a easy when I discuss everything other day when I was discussing that admin flow. Anyone wants to tell me? How do I know which role and all that? Yes, please. You have lifted all the details from database. So which method I'll have to call? Get role, exactly. So here, if user details dot get role and double equal to or equals 100% equals. These are two strings you are comparing for the equality. Equals, and I think it is a customer or admin, right? So if it is customer, what should I return? We have that topics page, topics flow. So I don't have a today topic servlet. If you want to expand, now we are switching the roles. I'll finish admin, you finish that topics if you want. It's completely optional. Return topics. If the control comes here, so here it implies, what it implies? Customer login. And if I come here, what does it imply? The admin login. And where you want to send the admin user to, let's say show form, show tutorial. I'm just taking something. Show tutorial form. And then of course we'll write the show tutorial form.jsp and all, and we'll complete it. So I'm waiting here. I think we are done here. Yeah. So I'm waiting here for you to catch up. And of course, I'm sending you this also. The JavaBean. First JavaBean. So D8 content management system, SRC, main, Java, beans, and user bean. Yeah. I sent you that. You let me know, and you look at, even if you have typed it, fine. Just typing is not important at all to me. So please go through which data members, what properties we identified as JavaBean and why. What is it we have done in the constructor? Setter getters are very plain, very ordinary. And then finally, how we wrote the business logic method. So spend a minute there and then we'll continue. In between, if you have any question, after 58 line, Mohit. Oh, you mean the whole business logic method you want me to repeat?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Then?
in a yes topic page.
You mean this line?
Yes, ma'am.
Anyway,
Yes.
I can't repeat in between, Mohit. Anyway, doesn't matter. We'll revise. Okay, so let me start asking you. It is not only Mohit, I'm talking to all of you, so anyone can respond. So, who is going to call this authenticate user method of a Java bean? Let's start from that. Who is going to be the invoker? JSP. You got it? So, before JSP can call this authenticate user, can you guys tell me which part of the Java bean code would be already called? Your choices are constructors, getters, setters, all of above, none of above. Answer is constructor and only constructor. If you say only constructor, your email and password will be null. So which ones, guys? Constructor and two setters. Which two setters? Set email, set password. How? That we will worry in JSP. Okay, so having said that, are you going to see here null values or not null values, guys? 100% not null values. Okay, so now see this. See, that is why, I draw diagrams. So whatever is the information user has sent, reach JSP, and JSP will somehow inject it, will somehow pass it. Somehow means what? Calling the setters to the Java bean. Now, JSP is going to the one who is going to call the business logic method. So start solving it line by line. In Java bean, are we going to write any data access logic, or do we have a DAO layer for that? We have a DAO layer for that. So who is calling whose method here? Bean is calling. Keep that diagram in front of you for understanding the request flow, how it is traversing. So Java bean is calling the DAO layer method. So it is this flow. You know the directions. So here the control reaches. Now bean is calling the DAO layer method. So I'll take it. Yeah, I did it properly. Now tell me, what is DAO layer method going to return? It is going to return either null or not null. So tell me, if it returns you null, actually I don't require even else because I've returned. What if it returns null? What does it mean? Failed login, successful or failure? Invalid login, absolutely. So in that case, I cannot take the user in my topics side, customer flow, neither in the admin. So we are simply saying, go back to your login page. That .jsp, if you are worried about, don't worry. Give me 2 minutes. When we write the JSP, we'll append all of that. Okay, so that will be done. No worries. If it is not null, what does it mean? I'll give you the choices. Authentication is done or authorization is done. Only authentication is done. Credentials are successful. Okay, so now we have to check which is the role and go for role-based checking. So my details are already lifted from the database to DAO and DAO to bean. So here I'm checking, is it a customer who is logged in? If the answer is yes, where I want to take the client to the topics.jsp. The .jsp will be added later. But if it is an admin guy who is logged in, today I said in between pages skip. So I want to take him to this show form page where where we can this thing, what is it called? We can have a form and expand that. So this is exactly what I've done. In case a customer has logged in, return the topics. Soon we will be writing topics.jsp or show tutorial form.jsp or login.jsp to make it complete. Understood me, Mohit? Is the explanation clear? The whole business logic method? Yes or no, something. If still not, ask me pointed question. I think I revised everything. Okay, great. So now we are taking a break, but before that, I just want you to be mentally prepared. So which is the next layer? Which is the layer who is going to manage the bean? Everyone knows the answer, JSP. But let us do it in a proper flow style manner. So here, first we will copy your login.jsp, no more HTMLs. And the login form will be submitted. Earlier it was submitted to login servlet. So we'll write something like validate.jsp or authenticate.jsp, which will start managing the beans. So let me reach only the login page and we'll take a 10 minutes break. Close everything. Open your WebXML and remove everything else. And let's keep directly the welcome page itself as a login form, login.jsp. Make the changes with understanding. So that is why I created a separate project. I'm not creating some earlier one. Let this be only content management system, the basic one or two things, not completing the whole. So now copy from our earlier something, day 8.1, copy your this login.jsp. So that, where is that? Login.jsp. Okay. Just close it and put it under, paste it under context root, which is nothing but your web app. And open login.jsp, which earlier was submitted to validate.jsp. And that validate.jsp, if you remember your yesterday's assignment, was doing hash map based validation. So are we also going to do today hash map based validation or database based? You know, database based. So you got beans, you got DAO, you got DB utils, everything put together. And this is what we will write after 10 minutes break. So again, I'm saying before those 10 minutes break, what is it you are going to learn? So that you know you can open that readme JSP, everything I've written. I'm going to explain use bean, set property, immediately you don't require get property, and of course EL syntax to manage entire JavaBean lifecycle using a JSP. So that and much more after 10 minutes break. Let's have a 10 minutes break and resume. Anyone wants a project zip so far created, or you are all good? Should I send it? Okay, I'll send it. So if you want, you can catch up in the break. I'll send. So I sent you D8 CMS zip. If you all, only thing is when you take any code, just change that DB utils username and password, and you will be at the same level. So let us resume in 10 and focus on JSP, JavaBean related actions. Recently means just before the break, we have completed your beans layer. So which is the layer we are going to develop is the JSP. The welcome file, the welcome page is already added, login.jsp. So which is the next part we are going to develop is validate.jsp. Everyone clear? Can I continue? So let's start writing your validation page. Are we going to write scriptlets there to manage the JavaBeans, or are we going to use JSP actions to manage the JavaBean? Scriptlets or the action, you already know that. So let's create your web app, new JSP, validate, I guess, right? So this is your validation page. Why I gave you that exercise, I mean the assignment of yesterday was so that you can compare JSP with scriptlet and JSP without scriptlet. So if you open your earlier validate.jsp, this was a royal mix-up, royal mess, having business logic, presentation logic, and all that. And that we are going to compare or contrast it against the latest written page. So you start answering. I mean, when I say you start answering, of course, what is it you want to do first? I'll give you the choices. Create the JavaBean instance, option 1. Invoke the getters, option 2. Option 3, invoke setters, invoke business logic. What is the first thing we want to do? We want to create the JavaBean instance. So if you open my README JSP, the whole thing is mentioned elaborately. So which is the action? We are using JSP standard actions to manage JavaBean, entire JavaBean lifecycle without writing a single line of a Java code. So focus here. This is what I'm explaining and we'll write it immediately. So start. Which is the standard action? All prefixes of standard action is JSP and the action name is use bean. Case sensitive or insensitive? 100% case sensitive. Now, which are the two mandatory required attributes? One is ID and one is class. So here, ID is nothing but going to be actual meaning is it is going to match with the attribute name. So, but to tell you, it is going to be your bean ID. That is how you'll be referring to the bean, to the Java bean. And the class, as usual, has to be fully qualified Java bean class name. So, you will be supplying bean ID and bean class. And there is a optional attribute, third attribute as scope. And which are the four possible values? You know, PRSA, page or request or session or application. So if you don't mention the page, which is the default scope, I'm sorry, if you don't mention the scope I meant, which is the default scope in which your bean will be stored in the current page. But as you know, from our case study, I want to remember, I want that, see, user details is the property of a user bean. So I want to remember that user bean from login till logout. So can you tell me which is the perfect scope, which is the correct scope for that? The moment I say I want to remember the client, everyone knows it's a session scope. So we have already got all this. Let us use this and see what happens internally. Okay, so open that. Now the next instruction. Typically, I mean, you can place it wherever. Wherever means in the body tag outside. The norm is outside the body tag. It will still get added into JSP service, don't worry. So simply say JSP :use and control spacer. It will auto-complete it. We are not going to add any inner tags, so close it. So ID, and you can supply ID as anything, ABC, XYZ, anything. But since it is going to represent a user bean, always give the, sensible names. And then you supply the class. What should be the value of the class? Fully qualified class name. So here you can simply say beans or something, control space, and beans dot. Oh, it got the wrong one. So you can type it out, beans dot user bean. I just read the control space. And if I don't mention the scope, which is the default scope in which it will be added, is page. So I don't want page scope. I want a longer, wider scope. So add the scope attribute and give the value as session. Done. You let me know done or not done types. Okay. So now once you do this, everyone has to understand this is how I'm going to take the, let it be JSP JavaBean or later Spring MVC. What you call versus what internally happens. So answer that. Who is going to process this instruction? A web container. Web container is the one who manages the JSP lifecycle. And now I want to tell you, when you call this, what will container do? So I've got a diagram already. I think I've shared that with you. Okay, open JSP JavaBean related diagram. And there's a diagram called as JSP usebean. Open that. Oh, this is a bookshop bean. I mean, this is a different scenario, but doesn't matter. You can, I'm sure you will understand. So see this. When you say JSP :usebean, here in our current case, the ID was user and beans was user bean. Scope was session. So after you write this, container does so many checks. So what is the check? Container will check Is there already existing this bean instance? Bean is nothing but an attribute under the specific scope. So which is the scope we have supplied? Session. How will it find whether the bean is equal to attribute exists? It will simply call session.getAttribute. In our case, user. So tell me, are we calling this JSP use bean for the first time, or is it repetitive? I mean, first time or next time, second time, first time. So is there, apply your common sense and tell me, do you think, okay, what will the container get? Will it get the value as a null or not null? Is the bean is equal to attribute already exists? Of course doesn't exist. So container gets the answer as null. So it is the container who actually manages the bean lifecycle, which is triggered by JSP use bean. So now container is going to create the attribute. So all that locate, load, instantiate is already written. So for the instantiation, which constructor a web container can call? Default or parameterized? You know, when the web container called our servlet, all it could call was a default constructor. So now this bean instance, in our case, user bean instance created on the heap. But just by creating bean instance is not sufficient. You have to save it. You means container has to put it under the scope. So which is the scope you have asked for? Session. So how did we add the attribute in a given scope? The method is setAttribute. And which is the scope you asked for? Session. So session.setAttribute. The moment I say session.setAttribute, I hope you are understanding that HTTP session internal, the entry is getting added in the outer map or that inner map, attribute map. Of course, inner attribute map. And to end the story, whatever is the bean ID becomes the attribute name. And whatever is the bean class instance or that JavaBean object reference becomes the value. So these are the two steps automatically done by the container the moment you say JSP use bean. So we have done this. And how do you know what I'm saying is correct or not? What kind of SOP you expect to see when this line is executed? Please open your JavaBean class. And I think we have added a in constructor or something. Open user bean and you'll definitely see in user bean constructor. Then the control comes to the user DAO and you'll see in user DAO, etc. Understood the first line? So to wrap it, to summarize it, if you are calling JSP use bean for the first time for any client, what will your container call? The default constructor, setter, getter, or your, business logic method? Everyone should know the answer. And you will see it in a minute. Of course, a default constructor. Okay. Now tell me. So here I'll write in a comment. Please use the JSP style comments. What do you say? I'm just phrasing this. Tell web container to create the JavaBean instance as an attribute. It's nothing but an attribute and add it under the session scope. So this is what we have done without writing any Java code. So now you answer, what should we do next? I am still writing without, outside the body tag, as you can see. Again, I'm saying even if you add it in the inside of the body tag, doesn't matter. Generally, the norm is outside because this is not going to generate any response and all that. It's just calling a constructor. So now the next question, should I call the setter using JSP set property or should we call the business logic method? Setter or a business logic method? Tell me. Let's see what you're saying. Of course, setter. So now see the syntax. So here, just a second, there are a lot of variations. Okay, there are a lot of variations which I'll explain later. So here, look for 2.3 or you can look up here and see. So which is the standard action we are using? JSP colon set property. Whatever was the ID attribute now becomes the name. Okay. So whatever is the bean ID you have given, what is the bean ID we have given? User. So that becomes the attribute name bean name. And when I say property equal to star, what do you think? Star means what? Which setters will be called? When you say property equal to star, which setters your JSP will call? So generally I get the answer as all, but the correct answer is all matching setters. So understand, think like a JSP container. When I say JSP container, you know, it's equal to web container. So can anyone tell me, it's not a memory based question, it's a understanding based question. Oh, by the way, we have got a correction to make. Anyway, forget that correction. So tell me, which are the two request parameters which will be sent from client to server? Give me the names of the request parameters. Guys, I don't know what you have copied. So here, EM pass, name pass and all that. So container is not a magician, obviously. So when you call JSP colon set property, what are the setters it will try to call? It will simply prefix a set keyword and uppercase the first letter. That is why the naming convention is so important. So which is the method it will try to call in my case? Set name and set pass. Now come to user bean and tell me, are there any methods by the name set name and set pass, or in your case, whatever, I mean set EM and set pass, they don't exist. So in such case, what will container do? Compile time error, runtime error, or none of above? Answer is none of above. Container will say, I tried my level best, but I as a container, I did not find any matching between what and what? Between the request parameter names and JavaBean property setters. So container simply cannot help you. And as the next line, when I call the business logic method, what we will get? Null or not null? Because the setting never got called, 100% you'll get null. So once again, the same statement I'm making. So when you come across, guys, the same thing in couple of days, you will see we will be calling through this. I mean, Spring Container will do automatically. This is all a warm-up practice for preparing you for Spring MVC. So coming back to the point, when you say property equal to star, which setters will be called? First option, all setters. Second options, all matching setters. Which one? All matching setters. And what has to match with what? Here, I've written in all the details. So what has to match with what? Request parameter name must match with the property setter name. So for example, if the request parameter name is EM, what should be my setter name? Set EM, E uppercase. If it is pass, it should be set pass. But as you know, what is easier to edit? All these property names from here, or is it easier to edit a form? What should I edit? Form or JavaBeans? Form is easier. So just I wanted to highlight it. I mean, I did not want to just tell you by this. So here, whatever are the property names, match them here. So otherwise you'll see all nulls, and then whatever you do, every time you'll get an authentication error, invalid login. So where are we? I'll say here, enter user email. You can add an input type email also later if you want, and change it to email, and the password is password. Are you clear on what has to match with what? Okay, I'll ask you the question again. Now when this form is submitted to validator.jsp and the control comes to this line, so I'll write it, invoke tell web container to invoke all matching setters. I'll share the comment with you. And what has to match with what? The request parameter names must match with JavaBean. JB is for JavaBean property setters. Because I'm saying set property, so I'm saying setter. When I say get property, of course, a getter. JavaBean property setters. Okay, so this is what we want. I'll write the next line, which is so easy. JSP colon set property. I just said control space. Property equal to star. And whatever is the bean ID you have chosen, choose it as the name. Change it. I mean, supply it as a name. Let me send you all these lines along with the comments, so that you have to keep track of whatever you have done. And if you want, you can definitely add a line. I'm not adding. You can add insert email, insert password, or you can later add a breakpoints and check this. Now, observe, sit back and observe. Have we created the JavaBean? I mean, not we. Has web container created a JavaBean instance by now? It's a Boolean question, yes or no? Answer is yes. You're saying no. Guys, of course the answer is yes. Which line does it? Line number, please. Line number 10. Have you passed the client's conversational state is equal to email and password to JavaBean? It's a yes or no. Yes. Which line, please? Which JSP action? 12. So in short, your bean instance is ready. Its state is initialized. Are we ready now to call the business logic method? 100% yes. Are you getting it? So that is going to return a string. And initially, I'll just display that string. And then we will take that action of navigation and all. So now, add a, now come inside the body tag, because that will have some relevance. So here, invoke business logic method of a JavaBean. But do you want to write a scriptlet for calling the business logic method of a JavaBean? Absolutely not. I'm not allowing a scriptlet hereafter. Okay. So how we will do it? Answer is EL syntax. And you'll see how easy it becomes. I mean, when I say easy, the majority of the job will be done by the container, and you'll be just using that. So here, let's add. So I'm just saying some navigational status. So I'm saying the outcome. Outcome means what is the result of business logic. And let us try to call the business logic method of a bean using your famous EL syntax. So we are going to discuss it first, and then we are going to write. It's not going to be like directly. Reached here? I have not yet written the EL syntax. I want to discuss it first. Okay. So now let us discuss it in a reverse manner, reverse engineered manner. Means what? Whose method you want to call? Okay, let me rephrase. Where is that business logic method? In the JavaBean or in the DAO? In the JavaBean. Can DAO wrong? The data access logic in the DAO. JavaBean has a business logic method. So can JSP directly control the DAO layer? Absolutely not. JSP using the JavaBean, standard actions, can only manage the bean. Okay, so which is the method name we have got? So just copy the method name, authenticate user. Okay, so come to this and let's add it here. And of course, you are going to call it on an invoker. So I have a small question. What will happen if I don't add the parenthesis? See, you'll say there's a problem. Oh, don't worry. Just answer this question. If I simply say dot authenticate user, which method your EL syntax, which method your container will try to call internally? Let me see. Absolutely right. A corresponding getter, correct. Because if you don't add the parenthesis, it will be taken as a property. And properties are revealed using getter. So in this case, if it is a non-getter, it's not a getter, it's a proper business logic method, must add the parenthesis. So now tell me, which method your web container will call? Get authenticate user or simply authenticate user? Answer is simply authenticate user. Understood me so much? I mean, understood this much? Now, let us shift to the invoker. Tell me, whose method? I mean, this authenticate user is the method of a Pojo or a DAO or a bean. It's a beans method. But have we got a bean reference, bean ID already created? Answer is yes. So, whose method you are trying to call? User beans method. And user bean is referenced by the bean ID user. Okay. So, will this suffice? 100% yes. This will work. But what did I tell you? To understand the JavaBean, remember only one line. JavaBean is nothing but a server-side attribute created by the web container. So let me see. Let me ask you. If I write only user dot authenticate you, I mean whatever. If I say user, what this will be taken as? Attribute name or a parameter name? What will your web container EL syntax will take it as? P for parameter, A for attribute. Parameter name. I mean, guys, we have spent so much time on the EL syntax. I said user.user details. Of course, it will take it. EL is all about attributes. So this will, it won't take it as a parameter name, guys. Request parameter, init parameter, context parameter. None of it is applicable here. But the attributes are stored into different maps. So in which map it will search first? PRSA, page scope map, request scope map, session scope map, or your whatever application. Everyone knows it. So it will get the result, but on the third search. Is there any way where I can tell the container, don't look elsewhere, search in the session scoped attribute map? Answer is very much yes here. See, this was all a build-up. Now you'll be getting. So here you'll say session scope dot user dot authenticate user. So if anyone, I mean, I'm not giving you no option, what will be the equivalent Java code which you would have called sitting in a servlet? Session dot get attribute. Either you say this or you can say session scope dot get. I'm okay with anyone. What is the attribute name it uses? Tell me. User. But what is sitting next to that attribute? User is the bean ID is equal to attribute name. The user bean instance is sitting there. So you have reached the JavaBean reference, and then on that it will call the authenticate user. But you know, this returns you the object, so it does the downcasting and everything. And instead of you writing, of course, your container doesn't know in which search, in which scope, but when you say session scope, it knows. So it will iterate this. I mean, it will find it out and we'll see whether it works. So comments are larger than the code as usual. So which is the first JSP action you are looking at? Use bean. For the first client, I mean, for the client for the first time, it will create the bean instance. It will be very interesting to draw the memory picture. So you join much before, I mean, I join. So you can try to draw which picture I'm saying, you know, that HTTP session internal. So keep some answers ready. We will discuss. When you say JSP colon set property, setters are called set email, set password. We have done the matching. And finally, we are trying to see whether I get a proper outcome. Got it? So please open your database. Now it is everything database based. Look at your users table. And let's give some credentials. So first, let us give the wrong credentials and see what happens. So now I'm just running the thing. You also run. Run on server. Next, removing earlier projects and apply, keeping only the first one. Let's do this. Always check the console for error free. I mean, there's no error here. Got it? Now, come to the client side. And let's start with the invalid login. This I don't have any user in my table. So what does the outcome login indicates? Valid login or invalid login? Invalid login. So invalid login branch seems to be fine. Now let us try as a customer login. Okay. I'm just pressing all three branches. So the moment you see the outcome as topics, by the way, there are so many things waiting for you to see. The bean constructor, DAO instance, authentication. I had given first the wrong details. Then I gave the customer credentials. So tell me, look at the output and tell me, working or not working? The moment you say topics, it is customer's correct login. Now let us log in through the admin credentials. So rama@gmail.com. Here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So tell me, I don't know how many of you are parallelly testing. Is it working? The JSP managing JavaBean, is it working for all three branches? Invalid login, customer login, and admin login. So this is how, this is like, introduction or getting started. Like I said, we have less time to spend on JSP JavaBean, but I'll pick up the lab session also to get you somewhere ahead. So this tells you that at least you are able to call, whenever you call that JSP actions, it is actually calling JavaBean methods. Okay, so this was it. I will send you, earlier I had sent you that part, so that this thing, validate.jsp, I'm sending you in case you want. Yeah, so which has got JSP colon use bean action for instantiating the bean, JSP colon set property for calling the matching setters, and your business logic. Those who are not typing along with, understood something, 10%, 20% at least? Got some idea about what we discussed? Okay. So now tell me, now let us refer to the case study. Here. So what is it we want? Do we just want to display that show tutorial form and admin and all, or do you want to actually navigate the client to those pages? Everyone knows it. We want to actually do the navigation. So tell me, which are the 2-page navigation techniques you know by heart by now? 2-page navigation techniques, CP and SP. Everyone knows that. So do you remember any JSP action which we can use in server pull? We recently did that. All this is a proper pattern. Do you remember any JSP action? Yes, very right. So all we are going to do is, we are going to take this dynamic navigational outcome, whatever that page name, login or whatever, and just go to append.jsp and we'll see whether you can forward the client. So open the validation page, validate.jsp. Oh, before that, I mean, that part you can do on your own. So you please compare your day 8.1 earlier validate JSP versus this lightweight JSP. This will look a little hard because I have written so many comments. But if you count actual lines, there are only 3 lines here. And that too, zero scriptlets, 0 Java code. Okay. So now comment this line. How do you comment this line? Mark it and click on Control Shift and /. And here we are changing the comment, invoke business logic method of a JavaBean using EL syntax and forward the client accordingly. Okay. So I just showed you step by step. First, we check whether our beans logic, the navigation, business logic and everything, the whole chain, JSP to database seems to be working fine. Now let us add the JSP : forward. and you don't require any nested tag. Anyone wants to tell me what will be the value of that page attribute. This page is the attribute. So I'm waiting here. What should be the value? Topics is a wrong answer. Try again. Okay, you're close. It's not complete, but yes, at least you're close. Guys, here, how can you say topics? You don't know, it could be an invalid login. It could be admin login. So let me ask you, is it going to be a static navigational outcome? Hard-coded always? Or is it going to be dynamic? Of course, dynamic. And how it gets decided? That is why I prepared you earlier. This is the method call, business logic method call, which is going to give you this outcome. So here, simply copy. But if you do only this much, you will 100% get 404 because there is no extension. So here, you don't have to say dot concat, dot append, nothing. Simply dot JSP. And let's see whether the work happens. So we are going in very tiny steps. So first I made you check this. So you told me you could see 3 distinct outcomes, login, admin, and whatever, the other one, and you have this. But currently, so I just appended to .jsp. But tell me, do we have we written any topics.jsp and show form tutorial.jsp? We don't. So let us write them. Otherwise, unnecessarily, you'll get confused. Okay. So let's add a couple of pages here. Which pages? Don't use your memory. Use your understanding. So one is going to be, are you understanding? So here we are going to have show tutorial form.jsp, web app, new JSP. And the other one, what is that other one? Topics or topic? I forgot. I think topics. Yeah, topics. Login.jsp we already have. So all I'm creating is the topics page. Created those 2 pages, topics and show tutorial form.jsp. And I hope you are not relying on your spellings. You are copy pasting the names and using it. Otherwise, you waste so much time in fixing your spelling mistakes. Everything else is right, but because of that. Got it here? Now open topics.jsp and I'm just adding a liner, one liner. So here, what is it? Is it a customer's login successful or is it a, what is it? User login, I mean, admin login successful or customer login successful? Let me see what you're answering. I'm sure you're answering correctly. Of course, customer login successful. So customer login successful. Later, we will derive it from the role name. We have the names and all that, but initially this much is sufficient. Okay. And now I just want to have a greeting. The topics and all that is not the flow we are going to use. We are going to use the admin flow. So I just want to say hello followed by username. So anyone wants to tell me? You understood what I want? I want the hello followed by username. So get me that username. I'll give you a minute. I hope you're typing something. You understood my question. I want to see hello followed by the name of the customer. Session scope.user.name. Partially you are right, partially you're wrong. Okay, so let's do anyone has this? Okay, yes, you're right. Guys, you have to go systematically. So let's start with the initial things. Everyone has got it that you have to use the EL syntax. Pretty powerful. So go and understand properly. You have in the user bean a property which you forgot, whose name is user details. But guys, this data member is private. So have I supplied a getter? Have we generated the getter for it? 100% yes. So can I call the getter using EL syntax? Yes. But now understand This user bean is what? Is a attribute. And what is the bean ID we have given here? User. Which is the bean ID? User. So now start doing it systematically. So start telling me. Which is the scope I should search under? Page scope, request scope, session scope, or application scope. That I think everyone got it right. Session scope. So here I'm referring to that inner map, attribute map. Can anyone tell me what is the attribute name? What should I use as attribute name? User or user details? 100% user, because bean is nothing but the attribute and bean ID is nothing but the attribute name. Okay. So if I write only this much, what it will do, it will call the user beans toString, which we have not overridden, and you will see some hash code value. Who is interested in user bean ka toString? No one. So now go detail. So here, now I want to call which method of a user bean? I want to get the user details. So the method name is get user details. Where is that method? So the method is, for the first 1 or 2 occurrences, do it. But now tell me, is it a business logic method or is it a proper getter? It is a genuine getter. And EL syntax is all about getter. So remove this get lowercase. Are you understanding why I was so strict about naming convention? Your web container will simply not find it and you might get property not found exception. So remove this. So now tell me which layer we have reached. I said, when you access this, have you reached a bean or a DAO or a Pojo? DAO is a wrong answer. JavaBean is a wrong answer. Guys, what is the data type of user details? It is a user Pojo. And in user Pojo, is there a property by the name? I guess so. I think so. So yeah, so that name. So can you see the method chaining? That is how the EL syntax works. So since you are a complete fresher, please write in the sense what? Write the corresponding equivalent Java code, which you can understand. So, and you decide, and then you tell whether you want to write a scriptlet or whether you want to learn the EL. So it starts with session.getAttribute. In goes the bean ID is equal to attribute name, user, and this returns you the user bean reference. So now you have reached the user bean. When you say .get, it is get user details, which returns you what? The Pojo reference. And on that Pojo, you are calling a method get name. So check if the statements which I made and its explanation clear or lost. See, everything 100% you won't get it. I'm telling you, it's a wrong thing to even expect. You're looking at something new, so give yourself time. And like I said, I'm not really interested in making you JSP JavaBean expert because it's a fading technology. But fortunately, unfortunately, all these are the prerequisites to learning Spring MVC. So we are spending sufficient time here. Okay, so one branch is done. Now just pick up this and paste it in your other whatever show form tutorial JSP. And what is the only thing which will change is the admin login. So currently I'm hard coding it. But is there any way to get the user role also dynamically? Answer is yes. I just want your thinking. I said currently I'm hard coding it. So continue with the hard coding. But like how we extracted the name, is it possible to find out the user's role? Absolutely yes. What will be that EL syntax? This part all the same. Session scope.user.user details. But what will be this name be replaced by? .role. And that's it. Are you getting the feel? I'm not saying you add it immediately, but just keeping you like aware. So we got the pages. Now let's try to run this. Actually, we not changed anything. Have I changed anything in the Java code? I didn't change anything in the Java code. So if you make a changes in the Java code, you better reload. So let's say here, suppose I give the wrong, I'm giving the, what do you say, invalid this, observe. So it gets back to the form, but it is having my default username and password. So we will fix all of that. I don't want that. Okay, I want whatever, but I want an error message. User will be totally confused, like what is happening. I want to see some error message saying invalid login, please retry, and then along with the form. So that we will see how to add the message. Now let us try that. Admin login, Rama's login, and check. Are you getting forwarded the same request? Are you getting that admin login successful and the admin's details? You should. And then you log in using your other credentials, customer credentials, and check whether you are getting that. I mean, whether the routing, the navigation part, is it happening correctly? Understood some things also? So this is where, of course, I'm stopping. So as usual, before I log in, I log in, purposefully late. Of course, I also get a break. That is a hidden agenda. But the point is to give you some time with yourself. So I'll give you the detailed instructions. So you will import that earlier project D 8.1 and quickly go through our earlier stuff, as in, what we did, that include directive and the forward action and all that. But mainly, you're going to keep open some diagrams and the readmes and all that. And you are going to revise the complete flow from how I'll tell you. That is what I will mention in the in those instructions. So you will import this, or you might have your own copy. So you will start pressing it from the what? From the welcome page, and press it from JSP till database. And since it is a very important concept as a prerequisite to your MVC, after I log in, 100% I'll revise it. I'll not revise day 8.1. Too much time will waste. So we will revise it, and then I'll take you to the next part, which I already told you, the admin part. And there you will get a chance. I'm going to take a little bit of this also, theory also, as in JSTL, because I mean, I have to take it in order to show all these things easily. So you'll be learning something like JSTL plus a full revision and hopefully completion of an admin flow. So that is what I have planned for today's lab. See you in the labs. Anyone having any specific question before I stop? Anyway, think about all the questions, all the queries, all the doubts. Keep them together. When I log in, do ask. That will be all. See you in the labs.